An elderly woman takes care of her paralyzed son for 23 years, until one day, suspecting something, she decides to install a camera in her home. Before the story begins, comment below which city you're watching this video from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Enjoy the story, everyone. The sunrise had barely broken the horizon when Martha's alarm sounded, just like every other day for the past 23 years. At 64, the lines on her face told stories of resilience and quiet sacrifice, each wrinkle earned through years of unwavering dedication. She silenced the alarm before it could complete its first ring, a practiced movement born from routine. The modest single-story home on the outskirts of Nashville had been their sanctuary since the accident. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Martha swung her legs over the side of the bed, her joints protesting as she stood. The floorboards creaked beneath her feet as she made her way to the kitchen, knowing exactly which spots to avoid to maintain the silence. By 6:30 a.m., the coffee was brewing, filling the small kitchen with its comforting aroma. Martha's weathered hands moved methodically, preparing a breakfast tray for Ryan. At 35, her son still depended on her for nearly everything, and she had built her entire existence around meeting his needs. "Ryan, honey, time to wake up," Martha called, balancing the tray as she nudged open his bedroom door with her hip. Ryan's room was meticulously organized. The wheelchair sat positioned perfectly beside the bed, close enough for transfers but not in the way. Shelves lined with books and DVDs of TV shows he'd collected over the years dominated one wall. The window faced east, allowing morning light to filter through partially drawn curtains. "Morning, Mom," Ryan said, his voice still rough with sleep. Despite the circumstances, his smile remained one of Martha's greatest treasures. His hair, the same rich brown as his father's, was tousled from sleep, and his eyes, Frank's eyes, regarded her with familiar warmth. Martha set the tray on the bedside table and helped Ryan sit up, adjusting his pillows behind his back. "Scrambled eggs and toast today, and I brought your medicine." "Thanks, Mom, you didn't have to make anything fancy." "It's not fancy, just eggs," Martha replied, the exchange as familiar as breathing. "The nurse will be here at noon while I'm at the grocery store. Anything special you want me to pick up?" Ryan shook his head, already reaching for the remote control. "Just the usual. And maybe some of those cookies I like. The ones with the chocolate chunks." Martha nodded, watching as he flipped through channels until landing on a morning talk show. She helped him eat, then assisted with his morning routine, washing, dressing, transferring to the wheelchair. These tasks had become second nature over the decades since the rainy afternoon that had changed everything. That day remained burned into Martha's memory. The call, the hospital, the devastating news. Frank, thrown from the vehicle, gone instantly. Ryan, her beautiful 12-year-old boy, alive but forever changed. His spinal cord damaged beyond repair. The doctors had been clear. Ryan would never walk again, and so their lives had been rebuilt around this new reality. Martha had left her job as a legal secretary to become Ryan's full-time caregiver. Their days followed a predictable pattern: medications, physical therapy exercises, doctor appointments, and the soap operas they watched together in the afternoon. These television dramas provided their only real escape, transporting them to worlds where miracles happened daily and happy endings were guaranteed. As Martha helped Ryan into the living room, positioning his wheelchair in his favorite spot, she noticed something that made her breath catch. Beneath the blanket she'd draped over his legs, there seemed to be a slight movement, almost imperceptible, but definitely there. Ryan was engrossed in his show, apparently unaware. "Did you just—" Martha began, then stopped herself. She'd seen similar things before, phantom movements that turned out to be nothing but wishful thinking. Hope was dangerous after so many years. "Did I what, Mom?" Ryan asked, his attention still on the television. "Nothing, honey. Just wondering if you wanted some more coffee." As she walked back to the kitchen, Martha couldn't shake what she'd seen. Over the next few days, she paid closer attention, noticing other small signs. The way Ryan's toes sometimes flexed beneath the blanket, how his legs occasionally tensed when he was particularly focused on something else. Martha began to wonder if the impossible was happening right before her eyes. But fear kept her silent. Fear of being wrong, fear of raising hopes only to have them crushed. And perhaps most surprisingly, fear of what it might mean for both of them if, after 23 years of defining their lives around Ryan's paralysis, everything suddenly changed. Martha couldn't get the image out of her mind, those small involuntary movements beneath the blanket covering Ryan's legs. After a week of vigilant observation, she made a decision that felt both desperate and necessary. While Ryan was sleeping, she installed a small security camera in the living room, angling it toward his usual spot. She told herself it was for his safety, but deep down, she needed to know if what she'd glimpsed was real. 3 days later, Martha sat alone at the kitchen table, her hands trembling as she watched the footage on her tablet. Ryan was alone in the frame, believing Martha had gone to her weekly church group. The video showed him glancing toward the hallway, as if ensuring he was truly alone. Then, slowly, deliberately, he pushed the blanket aside. Martha's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a gasp. On the screen, Ryan was flexing his right foot, then his left. With obvious effort and concentration, he managed to bend his knee slightly. The movements were small, labored, but unmistakably intentional. Most shocking of all was his expression, not surprise, but intense focus. He knew. When Martha heard the front door open the following afternoon, she was sitting in the living room, the tablet open on her lap. She'd replayed the video dozens of times, each viewing building her courage for this confrontation. "You're home early," Ryan commented as he wheeled himself in, returning from his physical therapy session. His voice faltered when he saw her expression. "Mom, everything okay?" Martha turned the tablet toward him, the paused video displaying his secret. "I think you have something to tell me." Ryan's face cycled through shock, guilt, and finally resignation. He wheeled himself closer, hands fidgeting in his lap. "How long have you known?" Martha asked, her voice hardly above a whisper. Ryan exhaled slowly. "About 6 months. It started with just some tingling, sensations I hadn't felt in decades. I didn't say anything because, well, I didn't believe it myself at first." "6 months," Martha repeated, the words heavy with unspoken accusations. "Why keep it from me? After everything we've been through together?" Ryan's eyes welled with tears. "I was scared, Mom. Scared it wasn't real, that it would stop as suddenly as it started. Scared of getting your hopes up." He reached for her hand. "And maybe a little scared of what would change between us if I didn't need you in the same way anymore." The confession hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Martha felt tears spill onto her cheeks, unable to name all the emotions swirling within her: relief, joy, betrayal, fear. "Who else knows?" she finally asked. "Just Olivia," Ryan admitted, referring to his physical therapist. "She's been helping me work on strengthening exercises specifically for this. She believes I might actually walk again someday." Martha sat back, processing this information. Olivia Peterson had been Ryan's therapist for the past year, a vibrant woman in her early 30s who had always seemed particularly invested in his care. Martha had attributed it to professional dedication. Now she wondered if there was more to the story. "We need to see Dr. Wilson," Martha said decisively. "If there's even a chance of recovery, we need expert guidance." Ryan nodded, looking simultaneously relieved and anxious. "He has an opening next Tuesday. I already called his office yesterday. I was planning to tell you this weekend." Martha stood up, needing physical movement to process the emotional tumult. "I'll make lunch," she said, her default response to any crisis. In the kitchen, as she mechanically prepared sandwiches, her mind raced through the implications. If Ryan could walk again, everything would change. Their routines, their relationship, the future she'd envisioned. It was what she'd prayed for countless nights, yet the prospect now filled her with a complex mixture of joy and trepidation. When she returned to the living room, Ryan was on the phone, his voice low and intimate. "She knows. Yes, everything. I think she's okay. Just shocked. I will. You too." He ended the call quickly when he saw Martha, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. "Olivia?" Martha asked, setting down the plates. Ryan nodded, a smile playing at his lips despite the tension. "She says it's good, you know, that we'll need your support going forward." There was something in his expression when he mentioned the therapist's name, a softening around his eyes that Martha recognized immediately. In that moment, she realized she might be witnessing not one miracle but two: Ryan's physical recovery and the awakening of his heart after years of isolation. Dr. Wilson's office felt colder than Martha remembered, though perhaps it was just her nerves. She sat rigidly in a chair beside Ryan's wheelchair, watching as the doctor examined the latest MRI scans displayed on his computer screen. After 23 years of hearing variations of permanent and irreversible, she scarcely dared to hope for different words today. "Well," Dr. Wilson finally said, removing his glasses, "this is quite remarkable." His voice held the measured caution of someone who had delivered both miracles and devastation throughout his career. "There appears to be significant neural regeneration in areas we previously thought were permanently damaged." Ryan gripped the arms of his wheelchair. "So what I'm experiencing is real? It's not temporary?" The doctor leaned back in his chair, grey eyes thoughtful. "In cases like yours, incomplete spinal cord injuries with some preservation of sensory pathways, we're learning that the central nervous system has more capacity for adaptation than we once believed. Recent research suggests that with intensive, targeted therapy, some patients can recover function decades after injury." Martha found her voice, though it sounded distant to her own ears. "Are you saying he might walk again?" "I'm saying it's possible," Dr. Wilson clarified. "Not guaranteed and certainly not easy. But yes, with the right approach, Ryan could potentially regain significant mobility." The drive home passed in a haze of stunned silence, both Martha and Ryan processing the transformation of impossible to possible. When they arrived, Ryan broke the silence. "I need to call Olivia," he said, an urgency in his voice that Martha recognized as more than professional. "Invite her for dinner," Martha suggested. "We should discuss the treatment plan together." That evening, their small dining room felt different with Olivia's presence. At 33, she brought energy into the space, her auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her gestures animated as she explained the specialized rehabilitation program she wanted to implement. "We'll need to increase sessions to 4 times a week," she said, spreading out papers on the table. "And Ryan, you'll have additional exercises to do at home." Her green eyes flickered to Martha. "He'll need support between sessions." "Of course," Martha nodded, studying the younger woman. There was something in the way Olivia looked at Ryan when she thought no one was watching, a tenderness that transcended professional care. In the following weeks, their home transformed into an extension of the rehabilitation center. The spare bedroom became a makeshift gym filled with equipment Olivia recommended. Martha learned new techniques to assist with exercises, finding herself working alongside Olivia in a partnership she hadn't anticipated. One afternoon, 3 months into the intensive program, Martha returned from grocery shopping to find Ryan and Olivia in the living room. Ryan was standing between parallel bars they'd installed, sweat beading on his forehead, his legs trembling with effort. Olivia stood close, her hands hovering near his waist, ready to support him. "3 more steps," Olivia encouraged, her voice soft but firm. "You can do this." Martha froze in the doorway, grocery bags forgotten in her hands. Ryan's face was contorted with concentration as he shifted his weight, moving his right foot forward, then the left. His movements were shaky, but deliberate. 1 step, another, a third. The bag slipped from Martha's grasp, sending apples rolling across the floor. Ryan looked up, his face breaking into a triumphant smile that transported Martha back decades, to his first steps as a toddler, to bicycle rides without training wheels, to soccer games where he'd run with carefree abandon before the accident stole it all away. "Mom," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Look." Martha couldn't speak, overwhelmed by the sight before her. Ryan reached one hand toward Olivia, who took it without hesitation, their fingers intertwining naturally. The gesture wasn't lost on Martha. That night, after Olivia had gone, Martha brought tea to Ryan's room, finding him sitting on the edge of his bed, looking thoughtfully at a photograph of his father. "Dad would be proud of you," Martha said, setting the mug on his nightstand. Ryan nodded, still gazing at the picture. "I keep thinking about him lately, about what he'd say if he could see all this." Martha sat beside him, the bed dipping slightly under their combined weight. "He'd say you're as stubborn as he was, and he'd be right." After a comfortable silence, Ryan spoke again. "Mom, there's something else I need to tell you." He set the photograph down, turning to face her fully. "Olivia and I, it's not just professional anymore. We've been seeing each other. I'm in love with her." Though she'd suspected as much, Hearing the words aloud made Martha's heart constrict with a complex emotion, joy intermingled with the bittersweet awareness that this was another step toward a life where Ryan would no longer be solely hers. For 23 years, she had been his whole world, just as he had been hers. "Does she feel the same?" Martha asked, though she already knew the answer. Ryan's smile was illuminating. "She does. We've been taking it slow, but she's special, Mom, really special." Spring arrived in Nashville with a riot of color that seemed to mirror the transformation occurring within the walls of Martha's home. Nearly a year had passed since the discovery of Ryan's secret, and the changes were nothing short of remarkable. The wheelchair remained, but it spent more time folded against the wall than in use. Ryan now walked with the assistance of forearm crutches, his gait growing steadier with each passing week. On a particularly beautiful Saturday morning, Martha sat on the porch swing, watching as Ryan and Olivia returned from their morning walk. They made their way slowly up the path, Ryan leaning on a single cane now, Olivia's hand resting lightly on his back, not so much for physical support as for the simple pleasure of connection. "Beautiful day," Martha called out, noting the flush of health in her son's cheeks, so different from the pallor of confinement that had been his companion for decades. "Perfect day," Ryan agreed, sharing a meaningful glance with Olivia that made Martha wonder if there was more to his statement than weather appreciation. Later that evening, Ryan insisted on taking both women to dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown, a rare extravagance he said was to celebrate his progress. Martha suspected there was more to it when she noticed how Ryan fidgeted with his pocket throughout the appetizer course, how his eyes kept seeking Olivia's across the candlelit table. When dessert arrived, Ryan cleared his throat, his expression a mixture of nervousness and absolute certainty. "I have something important to ask," he said, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. Martha felt tears spring to her eyes as her son, who had once been told he would never stand again, rose to his feet without assistance and lowered himself to one knee before Olivia. Around them, the restaurant fell silent. "Olivia," Ryan's voice was unwavering despite the public setting, "you helped me stand when I thought I'd sit forever. You believed in possibilities when others saw only limitations. You loved me completely, exactly as I was, while helping me become more than I imagined possible." He opened the box, revealing a modest but beautiful diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Olivia's yes was immediate, her tears of joy mirroring Martha's own as Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger. The restaurant erupted in applause, strangers momentarily united in witnessing this triumph of love and perseverance. On the drive home, Martha sat in the back seat, watching Ryan and Olivia's intertwined hands on the center console. She felt a bittersweet contentment settle over her, joy for her son's happiness, coupled with the quiet acknowledgement that his life was taking shape in ways that would necessarily create distance between them. The wedding was a small affair, held in the garden of Olivia's parents' home just outside the city. Ryan walked down the aisle without assistance, a feat that brought many guests to tears. Martha, seated in the front row, found herself thinking of Frank, wishing he could witness this moment, their son standing tall, exchanging vows, beginning a new chapter that had seemed impossible for so long. 3 months after the wedding, during their weekly Sunday dinner tradition, Olivia placed a small gift box in Martha's hands. "What's this?" Martha asked, puzzled by the unexpected present. "Open it," Ryan encouraged, his arm around his wife's shoulders, both of them watching her with barely contained excitement. Inside was a baby onesie, impossibly small, with the words "Grandma's Little Miracle" embroidered across the front. Martha looked up, her heart suddenly racing. "We're pregnant," Olivia confirmed, her hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. "Due in February." As preparations for the baby began, Ryan approached Martha with another conversation she hadn't anticipated. "We've been looking at houses," he said one evening. "Something with more space, a yard for the baby, and—" He hesitated, then continued, "and we were hoping you'd consider moving with us." Martha's surprise must have shown on her face, for Ryan quickly continued, "We found a place with an in-law suite. Your own space, but still together. We want you with us, Mom, your family." The new house was everything they'd described, a charming 2-story Victorian on a quiet street, renovated to accommodate Ryan's needs while providing space for their growing family. Martha's suite, featured a private entrance and small garden, offering independence while keeping her connected to daily life. In February, right on schedule, William Franklin Peterson came into the world, named for both his paternal grandfather and Olivia's father. Martha was present for the birth, watching in awe as Ryan held his son for the first time, the wonder on his face mirroring what she'd felt 36 years earlier holding him. As spring returned to Nashville once more, Martha sat in her garden, watching Ryan play with 7-month-old William on a blanket spread across the lawn. Ryan lay on his back, lifting the laughing baby above him, his legs now strong enough to support him through most daily activities. Olivia moved between them and the grill, where she was preparing dinner, occasionally stopping to drop a kiss on her husband's head or tickle their son's chubby feet. Martha closed her eyes briefly, the warm sunlight on her face, gratitude filling her heart. The path had been long and often painful, marked by loss and sacrifice, but as she opened her eyes again to the scene before her, she understood it had led exactly where it was meant to. "Mom," Ryan called, gesturing her over. "Will wants his grandma." As Martha joined them on the blanket, the baby immediately reaching for her familiar face, she recognized the completion of a circle. For 23 years, she had devoted herself to caring for Ryan. Now, in this unexpected chapter of their lives, they were caring for each other, differently but no less meaningfully. William grabbed Martha's finger with surprising strength, his innocent grip a promise of continuity, of love persisting through generations. In his eyes, Martha saw echoes of Frank, shadows of Ryan, glimpses of the future, all woven together in the ongoing tapestry of family, resilience, and unconditional love. Thank you for joining us on Martha and Ryan's journey of hope and transformation. If their story of resilience touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What moment moved you the most? Did you predict the happy ending, or were you surprised by the twists along the way? Please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories that celebrate the human spirit. Your support helps us continue bringing these heartfelt narratives to life every day. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Tomorrow's story might be exactly what your heart needs to hear. See you in the comments.